At the roof of the world, a Google X executive raised a banner to save the ice. Then the mountain answered. This isn't a victory tale. It's what happens when purpose, pressure, and nature collide in a single instant. Why did he return after one of Everest's deadliest seasons? And what did that choice set in motion? He wasn't built for headlines. He was built for missions. A small-town kid who sprinted into Silicon Valley, he carved out a role protecting people's data by day and chasing the edges of the map by night. The office never contained him. He climbed, he ran long, he led friends into places that felt like the end of the world, and then pulled out a plan to make a difference there. Everest wasn't a bucket list trophy to him. It was a living symbol of everything he cared about: climate, courage, and the thin line between them. At work, he navigated risk with rules and models. On the mountain, he did it with ropes and judgment. Same brain, different battlefield. He talked about shrinking glaciers the way other people talk about weekend plans: urgent, practical, personal. That's why the banner mattered. It wasn't branding, it was a message aimed at the sky. And once you make your message that loud, you don't just climb for yourself anymore, you climb for everyone watching. But the mountain had already sent a warning, one season earlier, and he heard it like a dare rather than a stop sign. The warning came a year earlier. A collapse in the icefall turned a workday into a memorial, and the season fell apart overnight. He packed up with everyone else, carrying out more questions than gear. Was the dream finished or just paused? Back home, the noise got louder. Friends called it fate's red light. He read it as a flashing yellow. He tweaked training, upgraded kit, and replayed every decision from base camp to ladder crossings. If he was going back, it wouldn't be out of stubbornness. It would be because he believed the plan could outthink the risk. Not everyone agreed. After so much loss, returning felt to some like signing up for a repeat. He saw something different, a cleaner strategy, a tighter team, and a reason bigger than a summit photo. If the mountain could be used to say something that mattered about climate, about courage, then the climb wasn't vanity. It was a message with altitude. He circled a date, booked with a respected guide service, and set a quiet target. Arrive stronger, move smarter, and leave the mountain better than he found it. But that wasn't the whole story. He flew into spring in the Himalaya with a plan, not a swagger. The team wasn't a loose meetup. It was a seasoned outfit with a methodical approach. He slotted in, not as the star, but as the guy who did the work. Checklists, comms, contingency plans. Because up here, discipline keeps you breathing. The trek-in doubled as a mission. Villages slid by, yaks shouldered loads, and he kept talking about ice. Not as scenery, but as a warning. On a ridge above base camp, he lifted a banner that turned the skyline into a message. Protect what's melting. It wasn't content, it was conviction, stamped with a single tag he'd been pushing for years. Base camp felt like a small city, tents and tidy streets, radios chirping, ladders laid out like silver rungs to the sky. He prepped the way he worked, learned fast, moved smart, helped the person next to you. The goal was simple and impossible at once. Get everyone up and down, say something that mattered, and leave the mountain better than you found it. Then, just as the routine began to feel reliable, the ground decided otherwise. It happened in seconds. A low growl underfoot, a snap in the air, and then the world turned white. The quake rolled through the valley like a giant exhaling, and a shockwave ripped a slab loose above base camp. The air hit before the sound did. Tents lifted, poles folded, the horizon vanished. Instinct took over. He dove as the blast slammed through camp, ice and rock punching the canvas like hail with edges. People yelled names into static. Radios spat half words. When the cloud thinned, base camp didn't look like a town anymore. It looked like a map someone had crumpled. He was found with a head injury he wouldn't wake from. Then triage began. Climbers tore open med kits, turned sleeping pads into stretchers, and drew rough circles in the snow. Urgent here, stable there. Guides coordinated across broken channels. Helicopters clawed at thin air, grabbing pockets of visibility between gusts. Every lift felt like a gamble and a promise. But even as blades spun, choices got harder. Who flies first? Who can wait? Who can't? The mountain had made the first decision. Humans were left with the rest. And what happened next would test more than skill. It would test the ethics of survival. The rescue wasn't a clean miracle. It was a scramble. Pilots threaded valleys on fumes of visibility, landing where ground crews could carve a flat spot in chaos. Guides argued triage with a clock ticking louder than the wind. Some said the well-connected got lifted first. Others swore it was only about who would make it if they moved now. In truth, it was all of it at once. Human judgment under pressure, imperfect and necessary. As the rotors faded, the second wave began. Lists of names, satellite messages, relief flights stacked behind search flights. Families begged for updates that changed by the hour. The mountain had collapsed a camp. The quake had collapsed a country. And in between those two disasters, people tried to make sense of one life lost among so many. Back home, the tributes landed fast. Colleagues celebrated the builder, the boundary pusher, the friend who dared people into better stories. Donations surged to relief funds. His climate project, once a banner on a ridge, turned into a call to action. Teams gathered gear, communities raised money, grief became motion. But the silence after the noise brought a tougher conversation. Everest isn't just a mountain, it's a marketplace. Permits, outfitters, five-figure packages, and a global audience hungry for summit selfies turn one ridgeline into an economy. When demand spikes, caution bends. Lines form where oxygen thins. Timelines get squeezed by weather windows and bragging rights. The math stops being personal and starts being transactional. The locals carry more than loads. Icefall doctors set the route, fix ladders, and thread rope through moving puzzles. For them, risk isn't a hobby. It's a paycheck and a point of pride. After bad seasons, some call for pauses. Others can't afford one. Safety becomes a negotiation with rent due. Then there's the modern push culture. Optimize training, optimize gear, optimize sleep, food, pace, posts. It's the startup mindset strapped to a crampon. If you plan hard enough, you can outthink chaos. But mountains don't read spreadsheets. They move when they want. That's where his story sits, between purpose and pressure. He wasn't chasing a hollow trophy. He wanted to say something that mattered and believed discipline could manage the danger. Maybe it could have on another day. But systems matter as much as choices, and this system rewards returning even when the warnings are fresh. Which leaves one last question we can't dodge. In the end, the summit he aimed for wasn't a point on a map. It was meaning. He tried to turn altitude into a message, to use a dangerous place to say something urgent about a warming world. The quake didn't care. Mountains don't make exceptions for purpose. What's left is the ripple, friends who still tell his stories, projects that kept moving, a banner that meant more than a selfie ever could, and a harder truth. No cause, however noble, can guarantee a safe return. Preparation matters. Systems matter. Luck still decides. So, the question comes back to us. When passion meets risk, where do you draw the line for yourself, for the people who rely on you, for the place you're entering? Maybe the bravest choice isn't pushing higher. Maybe it's knowing when to stop. The mountain will always be there. The real test is what we bring to it, and what we're willing to leave behind. There's another angle we rarely admit. Near misses can trick us. Walk away once, and the brain files danger under manageable. The next time feels safer, not because it is, but because the story in your head says you've solved the puzzle. That's how risk gets normalized, one lucky outcome at a time. He wasn't reckless, he was methodical. But even good judgment can be coaxed into bolder bets when meaning is on the line. And the spotlight doesn't help. The internet turns summits into currency. Likes, logos, speaking slots. Even if that wasn't his aim, he knew the megaphone mattered. Tell a story from the highest place on earth and people listen longer. That's powerful. And it's a current that can pull you farther from shore than you intended. Yet, shutting the door on mountains isn't the lesson. Respect is. Respect for weather, for workers who make the route possible, For a valley that carries grief the world forgets once headlines fade, respect for the fact that rescue isn't guaranteed, and that every decision at altitude is paid for in someone's time, energy, and sometimes their safety margin. If his life leaves a compass point, it might be this: let purpose lead, but let humility steer. Carry your message, but measure the cost. Celebrate ambition, and challenge the systems that monetize danger. Ask better questions before you clip into the rope. What am I proving? To whom? And why? Who benefits if this works? And who bears the risk if it doesn't? Picture that banner again, snapping against cold air, 4 words that tried to bend the future. That image is the summit he actually reached. The rest is a reminder carved into wind and snow. You can fight for something bigger than yourself and still choose a safer path. The mountain doesn't need your answer, but the people who wait for you do.